The imperial capital of Ardentis Prime was a world of silver towers and endless lights. Its skies were filled with ships, its streets alive with the sound of marching soldiers and roaring engines. At the heart of this vast empire stood the Emperor's training grounds, a place known for both honor and fear. Inside those metal walls, something powerful waited, something that no one had been able to control. The Emperor's war beast, Zephyrion, was a creature unlike any other in the galaxy. It was half machine and half living dragon, created in the Empire's secret labs using alien technology and ancient dragon DNA found on a forgotten world. Its body was covered in silver scales that glowed faintly with blue light, and when it moved, the ground trembled. Its wings were made of reinforced alloy, capable of cutting through storm winds. Its heart was powered by a living energy core, something between magic and science. It had been built to destroy fleets, to crush cities, to make enemies of the Empire kneel in fear. But now it was broken. Once, Zephyrion had been the pride of the Emperor. It had led battles across the galaxy, a symbol of strength and terror. But in one terrible battle on the world of Cryon Delta, something had gone wrong. An enemy weapon had exploded near the dragon's neural core, damaging the link between its organic mind and its mechanical systems. Zephyrion had survived, but not unchanged. It woke in madness, lashing out at everything near it. The Empire's engineers rebuilt its body, but they could not heal its mind. The first trainer who entered its cage was burned alive within seconds. The second was crushed when Zephyrion's tail slammed him against a wall. The third never came out at all. And so the legend began. The Emperor's broken dragon. Cursed beast. A weapon that had turned on its own. The more it raged, the more people whispered that it was haunted by the souls it had destroyed. Every week, new trainers arrived, soldiers, scientists, even alien tamers from far-off worlds. Every week, they failed. Some tried pain. Some tried control chips. Some tried kindness. None of it worked. Zephyrion would roar, its cry shaking the entire facility. His breath could melt steel. His claws tore through armor. Cameras watched from behind thick glass as it destroyed everything they sent. Each failure made the Emperor more furious. In the throne room of Ardentis Prime, the Emperor sat in silence as reports were brought before him. His advisors bowed low, afraid to meet his eyes. He was an old man, his face marked by years of war. The dragon had once been his ultimate power, but now it had become a humiliation. Enemies across the stars mocked the Empire, saying even the Emperor's own creation no longer obeyed him. "We have lost control of our symbol," one general whispered. "The people begin to doubt." The Emperor's hand tightened on the arm of his chair. "Then we find someone who can control it," he said coldly. "Someone who does not fear death. Someone who understands war the way that Beast does." The next morning, a new order went out across the Empire. The Emperor was offering a great reward, enough wealth to change a life, to anyone who could tame Zephyrion. The call spread through every system, every colony, every outpost. Men and women who once served in the army, hunters from forgotten planets, and beast tamers from alien worlds all heard the message. But most were afraid. In the training grounds, Zephyrion lay chained in the center of a wide arena. The metal floor was cracked and burned. Dozens of mechanical restraints held it down, each one glowing with a blue locking field. Its great golden eyes stared at the guards who watched from above. It did not sleep. It simply waited. Every breath it took came with a deep growl, like thunder trapped inside a mountain. The scars from its last battle ran deep along its neck and wings, glowing faintly with heat. Scientists in white suits studied it from behind the barrier walls, taking readings and whispering about its damaged systems. One of them spoke softly to another. "It's not just a machine anymore," she said. "It feels. It remembers. That's why no one can control it." Zephyrion's head lifted, and for a brief moment, it looked at her through the glass. The scientist froze, her heart racing. She could feel the weight of its gaze, the sadness behind the fury. There was more than rage in that creature. There was pain. Outside, banners were hung across the capital. Posters showing the dragon's silhouette filled the streets, calling for heroes, challengers, fools, anyone brave enough to face it. The empire needed a savior. The emperor needed his pride restored. But as the sons of Ardentis Prime set behind the shining towers, no one came forward. Not yet. The dragon remained alone in its cage, its body still and its mind lost in memories of fire and war. And somewhere, far away on a quiet world, a man named Cole Harrison would soon hear that call. On a small green world called Verdun 9, far from the bright lights of the Empire, a man named Cole Harrison lived a quiet life. His house was built from scrap metal and old ship parts, sitting at the edge of a dusty town. The wind there carried the sound of engines and the smell of rain. Cole was a veteran of the Imperial Wars, once a soldier in the mechanized infantry. His left arm was made of steel, a reminder of the war that had taken his wife and almost his life. Now, he worked repairing broken drones and farming machines for the colony, trying to keep things simple for his daughter. Lily was 8 years old, bright and full of questions. She had her mother's smile and her father's stubborn eyes. Every morning, she ran through the fields chasing small flying creatures, laughing in the sunlight. To Cole, she was his reason to keep going. Life on Verdun 9 was hard, but it was peaceful. The war felt far away here, almost forgotten. Then one day, a news drone passed over the town square, broadcasting an imperial message. People stopped working and gathered to watch. The emperor's seal appeared in the air, followed by the image of a dragon. Metal wings spread wide, fire glowing in its throat. The voice of the announcer echoed through the air. By order of Emperor Kale, a call is made to all corners of the empire. The creature known as Zephyrion, the emperor's war beast, has become uncontrollable. Any man or woman who can tame it shall be rewarded beyond measure. Honor, rank, and fortune await. The crowd murmured in awe and fear. They all knew the stories. The dragon that burned entire armies. The one that killed every trainer. People laughed nervously, saying only fools would try. But Cole stood in silence, his eyes fixed on the image. Later that night, Cole sat by the window, staring at the stars. He could hear Lily sleeping in the next room. His hand rested on his metal arm, the cold surface smooth under his fingers. He thought about the wars he had fought, the things he had seen, the nightmares that still came when he closed his eyes. He thought about the dragon, wounded, broken, feared by everyone. Somehow, it didn't sound like a monster to him. It sounded like something he understood. The next morning, Lily noticed her father packing a small bag. "Where are we going, Daddy?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. He knelt beside her and smiled gently. "I have to go to the capital for a little while, sweetheart. There's work there that could change our lives." "Is it dangerous?" she whispered. Cole hesitated. "A little," he admitted. "But I've faced worse." Lily hugged him tightly. "Then promise you'll come back." He smiled and kissed her forehead. "I promise." Cole took a transport ship that evening. As the engines roared to life, he looked out the window at the fading horizon of Verdun 9. The stars stretched into long trails as the ship entered hyperspace. Around him, other passengers spoke quietly, merchants and travelers heading to the Imperial core. None of them knew why he was going. None of them knew he was heading toward the Emperor's beast. When he arrived on Ardentis Prime, the air felt different, heavier, sharper. The city was enormous, glowing with energy and power. Towers rose high into the clouds, and soldiers in silver armor marched in perfect lines. Cole felt out of place among them, wearing his worn jacket and carrying a small pack. But he walked with the calm confidence of a man who had seen too much to be impressed by power. He made his way through the crowded streets until he reached the Imperial Academy gates. Massive banners of the Emperor hung over the walls. Guards stopped him, scanning his ID with a curious look. "You're here to train the beast?" one of them asked in disbelief. Cole nodded. "I'm here to try." The guard laughed. "You and 100 others. Good luck, old soldier." Inside the academy, the sound of distant roars shook the air. Cole followed the noise until he reached the viewing platform. Below him, Inside a huge containment dome, the dragon stood. It was larger than anything he had ever seen, its body shining in the light, smoke rising from the cracks between its metal scales. It was chained, but its power was still terrifying. Cole watched as a group of handlers tried to approach. The dragon lifted its head, eyes burning like molten fire, and released a deafening roar. The handlers scattered, terrified. Cole didn't move. He stood there quietly, studying the creature. He could see the pain in its movements, the anger that came from fear. The dragon reminded him of soldiers he had known. Men who came back from war broken and lost. It wasn't wild. It was hurting. One of the academy officers noticed him standing alone and frowned. "You there. Don't get too close. That thing doesn't like strangers." Cole turned slightly, his voice calm. "I don't plan to make it a stranger." The officer stared at him for a moment, unsure how to respond. Down below, Zephyrian's eyes turned slowly toward the platform. For a heartbeat, its gaze met Cole's. The air between them seemed to grow still. No one else noticed, but in that quiet moment, something ancient and powerful seemed to pass between man and beast. Cole exhaled softly. "You've been through hell, haven't you?" he whispered under his breath. The dragon blinked once, its expression unreadable. Then it let out a low rumble, deep and heavy, before turning away. But in that sound, Cole heard something others didn't. It wasn't rage. It was sorrow. The day of the first test began under the pale morning light of Ardentis Prime. Inside the vast containment dome, engineers ran final checks on the energy fields that held the dragon in place. Blue light shimmered across the walls, flickering from the strain of holding back such immense power. Soldiers stood at their posts, watching from behind armored glass, ready to seal the chamber at the first sign of danger. Everyone had seen what happened to the last man who entered. No one wanted to clean up what was left. Cole Harrison stood near the observation platform, wearing the same calm expression he had in every battle. He had changed into a standard handler's suit, light armor lined with sensors that allowed limited connection to the creature's energy field. It wasn't meant to protect him, only to record his death more clearly if things went wrong. A senior officer stepped forward, holding a data pad. "Name?" the officer asked. "Cole Harrison." "Occupation?" "Former Imperial Infantry," Cole replied. The officer frowned, unimpressed. "Not a professional trainer, then? Do you have any experience with xenobiotic war organisms?" "No," Cole said simply. "But I have experience with soldiers who've seen too much." The officer shook his head. "This isn't a man, Harrison. It's a weapon." Cole's eyes lifted to the massive shape beyond the glass. "Maybe once, but not anymore." Below, Zephyrion stirred. Its eyes glowed faint gold as it sensed movement. The metallic dragon lifted its head, smoke drifting from its nostrils. Its wings twitched, the sound of grinding metal echoing through the dome. Technicians backed away, and alarms pulsed red across the room. The commander on the intercom shouted, "Ready the restraints." Cole raised a hand. "Don't tighten them. If you do, it'll think you're trying to hurt it." The officers exchanged uncertain looks. "You're not in charge here, soldier," one snapped. Cole didn't argue. He simply walked toward the chamber door. The heavy gate slid open with a hiss of air pressure. He stepped inside alone. The world fell silent except for the sound of his boots on the metal floor. Zephyrion turned its head slowly toward him. Even restrained, it looked enormous. Its body longer than a starship, its wings folded like mountains of steel. Its tail dragged across the floor with a screech that made the walls vibrate. The creature growled, low and deep, the kind of sound that made every instinct scream to run. Cole didn't move. He stopped about 20 meters away and looked up at the dragon's face. Its eyes burned with power, but behind the fury, he saw something else. Confusion, maybe fear. He spoke softly, his voice calm and steady. "I'm not here to fight you." The dragon tilted its head slightly, the sound of metal shifting through the silence. His pupils narrowed. It had heard that tone before, long ago, on battlefields where soldiers whispered to their dying mounts. Cole could see the recognition flicker faintly in its gaze. From the control room, officers whispered urgently. He's going to die in there. We should pull him out. Wait, said the Emperor's advisor, who had come to watch. Let's see what happens. Cole took another step closer. They said you were a monster, he said. But I don't think you are. I think you're just tired. Zephyrian's wings shifted. A gust of wind blew through the chamber. Its claws scraped the floor, cutting deep lines through the metal. The sound was like thunder. The creature's gaze fixed on him, and its chest began to glow, a sign it was charging its plasma breath. Sir, he's provoking it, a guard shouted. Cole stayed still. He didn't run. Do it then, he said softly, his voice almost a whisper. If that's what you need to do, I won't stop you. The dragon's mouth opened, the glow rising to a blinding light. Then it stopped. The energy flickered out. Zephyrion stared at him, its breathing heavy. It let out a slow, rumbling sound. Not a roar, but something closer to a sigh. His head lowered slightly, the chains rattling. In the control room, no one spoke. Every person stood frozen. The dragon had just shown restraint. No one had ever seen it hesitate. Cole let out the breath he'd been holding. He took another careful step closer, his eyes steady. You've been hurt, he said quietly. You remember it, don't you? The pain, the noise, the fire. The dragon blinked once, then twice. His tail stopped moving. Its eyes dimmed slightly, the fury fading just a little. Cole crouched down, resting one hand on the floor. He didn't try to touch it. He only sat there, showing no fear. Minutes passed like hours. The dragon's breathing slowed. It was watching him, studying him. Finally, the voice of the Emperor's advisor came through the intercom. Enough. That's enough for today. Cole stood up slowly and gave one last look at Zephyrion before walking toward the exit. Behind him, the dragon let out a low, almost mournful sound that echoed through the chamber. When Cole stepped out, the officers were staring at him in disbelief. One muttered. He lasted 5 minutes. No one else made it past 30 seconds. Cole glanced back toward the containment dome. It's not about lasting, he said quietly. It's about listening. Far above the chamber, hidden behind observation glass, Emperor Kale himself had been watching. His old eyes narrowed in thought as he turned to his guards. Bring him to me, the Emperor said. At once. The summons came at dawn. Cole was escorted by 2 Imperial guards through the marble corridors of the palace. The halls of Ardentis Prime shimmered with gold and white light, the air filled with the hum of quiet power. Every wall was lined with banners of the Empire, symbols of strength, order, and fear. Cole walked with steady steps, his boots echoing softly on the polished floor. He felt no fear. He had seen more dangerous halls in his time. When the guards stopped before the throne room doors, one of them looked uneasy. When you speak to the Emperor, he said softly, keep your head down and your words few. Cole only nodded. The doors opened with a deep metallic sound. Inside, the vast chamber stretched upward like a cathedral. At the far end, under beams of pale light, sat Emperor Kale. He was old, his once dark hair now gray, his eyes sharp and thoughtful. His armor, though ceremonial, still carried the marks of real battles fought long ago. Around him stood advisors, guards, and members of the Imperial Council, all silent as Cole approached. Cole Harrison, the Emperor said, his voice strong despite his age. You stood before my dragon and lived. You even calmed it. No one else has done that. Cole bowed his head slightly. Your Majesty, I didn't calm it. I just didn't treat it like a weapon. A low murmur spread through the council chamber. One of the advisors stepped forward, frowning. Watch your tone, soldier. You stand before the Emperor. Kale raised a hand, silencing the man. No. Let him speak. He leaned forward, his gaze fixed on Cole. Explain what you mean. Cole took a slow breath. That creature, Zephyrion, it's not just metal and fire. Thinks. It remembers. You used it like a machine, and when it broke, you tried to fix it like one. But it's alive. It's wounded. and it doesn't trust anyone anymore. The Emperor studied him in silence. Around them, the council members exchanged nervous glances. No one spoke to the Emperor this way, but Kale's expression softened slightly. You sound as if you've seen this kind of wound before. Cole met his gaze. I have. I've seen soldiers come back from war, broken inside. Some never heal. Some do, if someone bothers to see them as more than tools. Kale leaned back in his throne. For the first time, his eyes held something almost human. A shadow of weariness. You believe Zephyrion can be healed? I believe it deserves the chance, Cole said simply. The Emperor stood, the metal of his armor glinting in the light. He walked down the steps until he stood only a few feet from Cole. The old ruler was smaller than Cole expected, but his presence was heavy with power and history. You would risk your life for that chance? He asked. Yes, Cole answered. Why? Cole hesitated. Because if we can heal something that broken, maybe there's hope for the rest of us. The words hung in the air. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the palace generators. Then the Emperor nodded slowly. Very well. He turned to his council. You will grant this man full access to the dragon enclosure. He will have 1 month to succeed. If he fails, we destroy the creature and erase the problem from history. The advisors erupted in protest. Your Majesty, that's madness. He's a soldier, not a handler. We cannot risk the Emperor's beast on a commoner. Kale's voice cut through them like a blade. Enough. His gaze turned cold. The Empire has had enough men who follow orders and fail. I will try the one who dares to think. He faced Cole again. You have 1 month, Harrison. Use it well. Cole bowed slightly. Understood. The guards escorted him out, though with far more respect this time. As he walked back through the corridors, he felt the weight of what had just happened. The Emperor had given him a chance, one no one else had ever been offered. But with that chance came danger. If he failed, not only would the dragon die, but so would he. That evening, Cole returned to the training grounds. The sun was setting beyond the towers, painting the sky red and gold. Zephyrion stood within its dome, still and silent, watching the world beyond its cage. The guards gave Cole a wide berth as he entered the observation deck. One of the engineers whispered to another, "That's him, the man who faced the beast." Cole ignored them. He walked to the glass wall and looked at the dragon. The same deep sadness lingered in its eyes. For a long time, neither moved. Then, slowly, Zephyrion lowered its head, just slightly, as if it remembered him. Cole smiled faintly. "We've got a month, old friend," he said softly. "Let's see if we can save each other." Behind him, in the upper gallery, Emperor Kale stood watching in silence. His face gave away nothing, but deep within his eyes burned a small spark of hope he hadn't felt in years. Days passed quietly after Cole was given full access to the training dome. Most people expected him to die before the week ended, but he showed up every morning, calm and steady. He brought no weapons, no control rods, no machines. Instead, he brought patience. At first, Zephyrion ignored him. The dragon stood motionless, eyes half closed, wings folded tight against its body. Cole would sit on the edge of the dome floor for hours, just talking softly. He spoke about the wars he had fought, about the things he'd lost, and about his daughter back home on Verdun 9. His voice carried through the vast chamber, echoing softly against metal walls. Sometimes he didn't speak at all. He just sat there, silent, letting the dragon feel that he was not a threat. By the 5th day, the guards started betting on how long before Zephyrion snapped and burned him alive. But that never happened. On the 7th day, when Cole entered the dome, Zephyrion's head lifted slightly. Its golden eyes followed him as he moved. The engineers behind the glass froze in surprise. Cole stopped near the center of the floor. "You remember me," he said quietly. "Good." He didn't approach closer than before. Instead, he placed a small projector on the floor. The device hummed and produced a faint hologram. A child's drawing, bright and clumsy. It was a picture Lily had made before he left. In the drawing, There was a dragon flying beside a man under twin suns. Cole smiled at it for a moment before turning his gaze back to the creature. "This is my little girl," he said softly. "She thinks dragons protect people." I told her that's true. For a long moment, Zephyrion didn't move. Then, slowly, its wings unfolded just a little, as if curious. The dragon leaned its head closer, its metal scales glinting in the light. Its eyes focused on the image. A low rumble came from its chest. Not anger, but something quieter. The scientists observing the scene whispered among themselves. "It's responding to visual cues," one said. "Emotional triggers, maybe." Cole didn't care what they thought. He cared about the look in Zephyrion's eyes. He could feel the creature trying to remember something deep within its mind, a memory buried under pain and rage. Over the next week, he repeated the process. He brought recordings of wind, birds, and soft rain. Sounds from worlds the dragon might have once known. He spoke less and listened more. When Zephyrion growled, he didn't flinch. When it roared, he stood his ground. Slowly, the dragon's fury began to fade into silence. Sometimes, when the evening lights dimmed and the dome turned dark, Cole would sit beneath Zephyrion's massive shadow and talk about his daughter's dreams. "She wants to see the stars one day," he'd say. "She says I promised to take her up there. I guess I have to keep that promise." One night, Cole brought Lily into the observation room. She pressed her hands against the glass, her eyes wide with wonder. "Daddy, it's huge," she whispered. "Is it scary?" Cole smiled faintly. "It used to be. Not anymore." Zephyrion turned its head toward the small girl behind the glass. Its massive eye blinked slowly. For a few seconds, there was perfect stillness. Then the dragon lowered its head to the ground, making a soft sound that shook the floor but carried no threat. Lily giggled, her breath fogging the glass. "It likes me," she said. From that day, the guards noticed something had changed. Zephyrion no longer roared when Cole entered. Its energy readings were calmer, its body less tense. It even began to eat again after refusing food for months. The technicians recorded everything, amazed by the transformation. But not everyone was pleased. Several officers of the Imperial Council met in secret that week. They feared Cole's growing influence. "If the Emperor starts trusting this man more than us," one hissed, "we lose everything." Another nodded darkly. "And if he tames that beast, the people will see him as a hero. We can't allow that." They began to plan. Unaware of the whispers, Cole continued his work. One afternoon, as the sun filtered through the dome's glass panels, he stood before Zephyrion and said, "You and I aren't so different. We've both been used, both been broken. But I think we can heal. Maybe not for the Empire. Maybe for ourselves." Zephyrion's eyes narrowed. Then, slowly, it extended one clawed hand forward, setting it gently on the floor near him. Cole hesitated, then reached out and placed his metal hand on the creature's armor plate. The contact was brief, but it was real. For the first time in years, the mighty dragon did not flinch away. From the upper viewing deck, Emperor Kale watched in silence. His expression was unreadable, but his advisor noticed the faintest trace of emotion in his eyes. "The man is changing it," the advisor said softly. Kale shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "They're changing each other." The quiet bond between Cole and Zephyrion spread through the palace like a spark through dry air. Within weeks, everyone in the capital had heard whispers of the dragon that bowed its head to a human veteran. To some, it was a miracle. To others, a dangerous threat. Emperor Kale ordered that the training continue under close supervision. He visited often, standing behind the glass as Cole worked. The emperor spoke little, but his eyes followed every movement. Something about the veteran reminded him of the old days, before the wars, before the endless politics. He saw strength in Cole, but also danger. A man who had nothing to lose could not be controlled. Meanwhile, the Imperial Council was restless. The councilors met in a dim room beneath the palace, their faces hidden by shadows. "He's winning the Emperor's trust," one said bitterly. "Every day the people whisper his name. He's a soldier from the colonies. another spat. The emperor forgets what those men did during the uprisings. He should have been executed, not rewarded. But what if he fails? Someone asked. What if the dragon kills him? A long silence followed. Then the oldest counselor spoke in a low voice. Then the emperor loses his new favorite, and the beast remains a weapon for us to shape. Either way, we gain. Plans began to form in the dark. Cole noticed none of it. His days were filled with quiet work and careful progress. Zephyrion had begun to respond to commands, not through control devices, but through trust. When Cole lifted a hand, the dragon followed. When he spoke, it listened. The technicians had never seen anything like it. Even the Emperor's elite scientists couldn't explain it. One morning, a messenger came to the training dome with orders. The Emperor requested a public demonstration. The news spread fast. Citizens from all over Ardentis Prime filled the grand arena to witness what none had believed possible. The tamed dragon of the Empire. Cole stood in the center of the arena, wearing his simple field jacket. He felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on him. Zephyrion waited behind reinforced gates, its body gleaming under the sunlight. For a moment, Cole thought of Lily, watching from the stands beside a palace attendant. She waved and he smiled back. When the gates opened, the crowd gasped. Zephyrion stepped forward, wings half spread, metal scales rippling with reflected light. The ground shook beneath its claws. Soldiers gripped their weapons, ready for disaster. Cole raised his hand slowly. "Easy, big one," he said softly. Zephyrion's massive head lowered, its eyes fixed on him. A deep rumble echoed through the air, not a growl, but a greeting. The crowd went silent. Then a roar of applause filled the arena. People shouted his name, some in disbelief, others in awe. Cole bowed his head humbly, but inside he felt something powerful. A sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. Emperor Kale rose from his throne above the arena, his voice calm but firm. "Today, we witness not control through fear, but through understanding. Let all the Empire remember what can be achieved when courage meets compassion." The people cheered again, but not everyone joined in. In the stands, two figures in black cloaks whispered. One of them held a small remote device. "He's made the Emperor weak," one hissed. "It ends today." That night, as the city celebrated, Cole stayed late in the dome. Zephyrion rested peacefully, its breathing slow and steady. Cole leaned against the railing, exhaustion in his eyes. He had done it. The dragon was no longer a monster. He didn't hear the silent steps behind him until it was too late. A shadow moved in the darkness. A man in a black uniform, his face hidden beneath a hood. He aimed a small emitter toward Zephyrion's head. The device pulsed once, sending a wave of red light through the dome. Zephyrion roared in agony. Its eyes flared crimson, and its body convulsed. Cole spun around, shouting, "No! Stop it!" He lunged at the attacker, but the man slipped away into the dark. The control device continued to hum. "Zephyrion, it's me!" Cole shouted, running toward the beast. "Listen to me. Fight it!" But the dragon's mind was clouded by pain. It thrashed wildly, smashing walls and tearing through steel beams. Alarms blared across the facility. Guards rushed in, firing stun rounds that did nothing. Cole dodged falling debris, his heart pounding. He climbed onto the damaged platform and reached for Zephyrion's head. "You're stronger than this," he yelled. "Don't let them control you again." For a moment, the dragon's golden eyes flickered through the red glow. Cole pressed his hand to its snout, shouting over the chaos. "You're free. You're not their weapon anymore." Then, with a deafening roar, Zephyrion collapsed. The emitter exploded in a flash of sparks. Smoke filled the dome. When the alarms finally stopped, Cole was lying unconscious beside the dragon's head. Both were alive but barely. From the palace tower, Emperor Kale watched the smoke rising into the night sky. His jaw tightened. He knew this was no accident. "Find whoever did this," he said coldly to his guard captain, "and bring them to me." When Cole awoke, the world was hazy and silent. His head throbbed, and his body ached from the explosion. The lights above flickered dimly, throwing long shadows across the ruined training dome. Smoke drifted through the air, carrying the smell of burnt metal. Then he heard it, a faint, pained rumble. Zephyrion lay nearby, motionless except for shallow breaths. The dragon's armor was scorched, and its wings were torn. Its eyes flickered weakly between gold and red, trapped between rage and recognition. Cole crawled toward it, ignoring the pain in his side. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "You're safe now. I'm here." Zephyrion's head shifted slightly. Its gaze met his, confused and wounded. Cole rested a hand on its snout, feeling the metal still hot beneath his fingers. "They tried to use you again," he said, "but they failed." The dome doors opened suddenly. A team of guards rushed in, weapons raised. Behind them came the Emperor himself, his golden robes trailing behind him. His expression was grim as he looked at the destruction. "What happened here?" Cale demanded. One of the guards stepped forward. "Sabotage, my lord. Someone tampered with the control systems." Cale's gaze moved to Cole. "And you survived." Cole stood slowly, his face pale but steady. "I didn't come this far to die easy." Cale walked closer, studying the wounded dragon. "Can it recover?" Cole looked at Zephyrion, then back at the Emperor. "It can. But not here. Not while your council wants it chained." The Emperor's eyes narrowed slightly. "You think I would allow it to leave the palace?" "I think," Cole said quietly, "if you really care about saving it, you'll let me take it somewhere it can heal." The air grew tense. Guards exchanged uneasy glances. For a long time, Cale said nothing. Then, finally, he turned to his captain. "Prepare a transport. A secure one." The captain blinked. "Sire." "Do it," Cale said sharply. "And have the medical engineers tend to them both." They traveled under nightfall. The Emperor's ship cut silently through the clouds, heading toward the deserts beyond the capital. There, hidden in the wastelands, lay an abandoned research outpost. It had once been used to test early biomechanical designs, long before Zephyrion was born. Cole remained by the dragon's side the entire time. The medical drones worked tirelessly, repairing torn plating and damaged circuits. Zephyrion stirred restlessly, haunted by fragmented memories. Cole whispered to it between treatments, telling stories about stars, oceans, and his daughter's laughter. "You're not a weapon," he said. "You're alive, and you deserve peace." When they reached the outpost, Cale himself came to oversee the operation. The Emperor stood on the landing platform, looking out across the barren land. "No one will find you here," he said. "But you must understand, veteran, this act defies my counsel. They will come for you." Cole nodded. "Let them come. I'm not afraid." Cale studied him for a long moment. "You remind me of the old days," he said quietly, "when men fought for something more than power." Then he turned to leave. "Take care of it, Cole. If this dragon truly trusts you, then perhaps there is hope yet for us all." As the ship departed, Cole stood beside Zephyrion under the vast, star-filled sky. For the first time, there were no walls between them. The dragon stretched its wings weakly, testing the repaired joints. The wind stirred the sand around them, and Cole smiled. Days turned into weeks. Cole built a small shelter beside the dragon's resting place. He hunted for food, repaired what he could, and kept watch at night. Slowly, Zephyrion healed. The red glow faded from its eyes, replaced by the steady gold that had once marked its pride. Cole often dreamed of Lily, wondering if she was safe. He had asked Cale to send her somewhere far from the palace, just in case. He hoped she understood why he had to stay. Then, one morning, the horizon flashed with light. 3 Imperial gunships broke through the clouds, engines roaring. Cole grabbed his rifle and shouted, "Zephyrion, up!" The dragon rose, slow but powerful. Dust swirled around its massive form. Cole's heart pounded as soldiers rappelled from the ships, their armor gleaming under the suns. "By order of the Imperial Council," a voice boomed through the loudspeaker, "you are to surrender the creature immediately." Cole clenched his fists. I don't take orders from traitors. The soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts scorched the sand. Zephyrion roared, wings spreading wide. The air trembled with its fury. Cole ran to its side, climbing onto the harness they had built together. Let's show them what freedom looks like, he said. With a thunderous cry, Zephyrion launched into the air. Fire erupted from its engines as it spiraled upward, cutting through the gunships like a blade through glass. The sky burned with light and sound. Cole shouted commands, and the dragon obeyed with deadly precision. The battle above the desert was short but fierce. One by one, the council's ships fell, trailing smoke. When the last one exploded in a burst of flame, Zephyrion circled the wreckage before landing on the dunes. Cole slid from the saddle, breathing hard. He looked up at the massive creature, its golden eyes calm once more. You did it, he said softly. We did it. Zephyrion lowered its head and released a low, steady sound. Not a growl, but something almost gentle. Far away, in the Imperial Palace, Emperor Kale received the report. He stood by the window, watching the suns rise over Ardentis Prime. A faint smile touched his lips. Let the council tremble, he murmured. The dragon has found its master. Dawn broke over the desert outpost, painting the sands in gold and crimson. Smoke from the destroyed gunships drifted into the horizon. Cole stood beside Zephyrion, his hand resting on the dragon's warm metal scales. Both were exhausted but alive. The quiet after the battle felt unreal, a stillness earned through blood and fire. For a few days there was peace. Cole spent his time tending to Zephyrion's wounds and repairing what he could of the old shelter. The dragon rested, its breathing calm, its golden eyes soft when it looked at him. They had become more than man and beast. They were brothers now, bound by shared pain and the will to survive. But far away, the Empire burned with unrest. The Imperial Council, furious at their failure, declared Cole a traitor and Zephyrion a rogue weapon. They spread lies across the systems, claiming the veteran had stolen the dragon and turned against the throne. Armies began to mobilize. Warships moved toward the outer colonies, and the people of Ardentis Prime whispered of rebellion. Emperor Kale watched his empire crumble. Alone in his throne room, he read the reports in silence. His heart was heavy, torn between loyalty to the crown and the truth he could no longer ignore. They will destroy everything, he said softly, all because they cannot control what they fear. Finally, he made his decision. Kale called for his most trusted pilot and gave him a sealed message. Take this to Cole Harrison, he ordered. Tell him the Emperor stands with him, and that the truth must be seen by all. The pilot left that same night, racing through the stars toward the desert. Cole saw the shuttle land 2 days later. He aimed his rifle until the hatch opened and a lone man stepped out, hands raised. I come from the Emperor, the pilot said. He sent this. He handed over a small crystalline device. When Cole activated it, a hologram appeared. The Emperor's face, weary but resolute. Cole, the recording said, the Council has betrayed the Empire. They will stop at nothing to seize the dragon. I cannot protect you from here, but I can give you the truth. This device contains the records of their crimes, proof of what they've done to our people. Broadcast it. Let the galaxy see who the real enemies are. I trust you, soldier. The message ended. Cole stared at the device for a long moment. Then he looked at Zephyrion. Looks like we've got one last mission. He spent the night preparing. Using parts scavenged from the wrecked ships, he built a long-range transmitter. Zephyrion helped, lifting heavy components and shielding the camp from desert winds. When the system was ready, Cole set the device in the transmitter core. Once this signal goes out, he said, there's no going back. The dragon lowered its head beside him. Its eyes glowed softly, like twin stars. Cole smiled. Yeah, I know. Let's do it anyway. He activated the transmitter. A beam of light shot into the sky, piercing the clouds. Across the Empire, every channel, every broadcast, every communication feed flickered, and then the truth began to play. Images of corruption, secret experiments, and the council's plot to control the emperor filled the screens. The people saw everything. The council panicked. They ordered immediate retaliation. A fleet was sent to the desert to erase Cole and Zephyrion once and for all. Cole watched the sky as hundreds of ships appeared on the horizon. "Guess they got the message," he muttered. Then he turned to Zephyrion. "One last ride, partner." The dragon's wings unfolded wide, casting a massive shadow over the sand. Flames shimmered in its engines as it rose into the air. The fleet descended like a storm, but Zephyrion met it head-on. The battle was chaos. Plasma bolts rained from the heavens, scorching the ground. Cole and Zephyrion moved as one, dancing through the fire. Missiles streaked past them, exploding in brilliant bursts. Zephyrion unleashed a torrent of blue flame, tearing through enemy ships. Cole shouted commands, guiding the dragon through the swarm. For every ship they destroyed, 3 more appeared. The sky turned red with fire, but Cole refused to fall. "Keep going," he yelled. "We end this now." As the flagship approached, Zephyrian sensors locked onto it. The dragon soared higher, wings cutting through the smoke. Then, with a deafening roar, it dived straight into the heart of the enemy line. The explosion that followed lit up the entire desert. When the light faded, silence fell. Hours later, Imperial rescue teams found the wreckage. Among the burning metal and glass, they discovered Zephyrion's shattered body, its core still glowing faintly. Near it lay Cole, unconscious but alive, his hand resting on the dragon's armor. Emperor Kale arrived soon after. He stood over them, his expression unreadable. "He did it," one of the officers whispered. "The transmission reached every system. The people have risen. The council's finished." Kale nodded slowly. "Then the Empire has a chance to heal." He looked at Cole and the fallen dragon. "But only because of them." He ordered that both be taken back to the capital, not as prisoners but as heroes. Months later, peace returned to Ardentis Prime. The council was gone, and the emperor had begun rebuilding the empire. Not through fear, but through hope. A great monument stood in the central square, a towering statue of a man and a dragon side by side, gazing toward the stars. At the dedication ceremony, the emperor spoke before thousands. "This is the story of a man who reminded us what courage means, and of a creature that showed us what it means to be free. Together, they healed a broken empire." In the crowd, a young girl held her father's hand. Her eyes were bright as she looked up at the statue. "That's Daddy," she whispered. "And Zephyrion." Cole smiled, his scars hidden beneath his collar. "Yeah, sweetheart," he said softly. "We both made it home." Above them, the twin suns rose over Ardentis Prime, and for the first time in years, the light felt warm again.